Hello, everyone that's joining us on the webinar. Welcome to our webinar today. It's about joining our strategic resident groups and how you can get involved in decision-making at Peabody. My name is Aisha Chimbugwe and I work in the resident involvement team. I'll be joined today with Jeffrey Billings, Peabody resident and member of the Scrutiny Panel. I'm also joined by Lisa Ray, who is a long-term Peabody resident and the chair of our strategy and policy group. A bit of housekeeping, please. Can we be aware that this session is recorded and it will be shared on the Peabody website later this week? You are more than welcome to ask any questions at any time, but could you please type them in the Q&A section, which should be just somewhere at the bottom, and we'll try to get through it all and go through as many possible questions as possible during the Q&A part of this webinar. Now, to get us started, as we wait for other people to join us, I thought we would start this session with two polls on being involved. A little poll will come up on your screen. Yes. So the first poll is, have you ever volunteered in your community or online before? Yes or no? Any answers? Yes, the results should come straight through. Oh, wow, fantastic. Yes, 82%.
There we go.
18%, we still have an option. Yes, we'll try and do that. Can we do the second poll this time? We're talking about volunteering within Peabody resident groups. Now, these residence groups could be anything from a residence association, an informal group, a gardening group, or maybe supporting with reading with young children on the estate, anything, or even a crocheting group. Let's see, anyone's been involved? Ooh, much better, 64%. That is good. 64% of attendees are involved. Wonderful.
Interesting.
Yes. And as we've now managed to get two more attendees, let us go along. So today, what we're going to do is talk through the decision-making process. If I could just put up the agenda for today. Thank you so much. The technology behind all these things. All right. Okay, so for this webinar, we will be talking about how residents are currently involved in decision-making at Peabody. I will also give an overview of how the strategic resident groups, which is the Scrutiny Panel and the Strategy and Policy Group, as well as its subgroups. We shall then hear from Jeffrey Billings, our Scrutiny Panel member, Lisa Ray, the chair of the Strategy and Policy Group, and finally, we shall have the Q&A session and just a quick reminder on how to apply. Okay, so that's the agenda for today. Yes, now, as you can see from the slide, we're going to talk about how we are involving residents in Peabody. We involve residents at almost every level of decision-making across Peabody to ensure that their views are at the heart of what we do. We have formalized the structure of involving them throughout the organization. If we take the first one on the left, that is the resident board and committee members. This is the highest level of decision-making at Peabody. We currently have 2 residents who sit on our board, 2 residents on the customer services and committee. We also have 4 residents on the Peabody Community Foundation board. These residents who join the board or a committee, they commit to a 3-year term with the option to extend for another 3 years thereafter. There is more information on our website, which we can be able to show you, yes, and the details and the links to our website will be shared after the webinar. Another way in which residents can be involved at Peabody is through residents associations, which is the second one in the middle on the top. As you're aware, many of our estates across London and the Southeast have residents associations which work for the benefit of their local community. Some are formal and others are informal. And if there's anyone here who would like further information, please make a request in the Q&A box and we will send this information to you after the webinar. Another way in which we have engaged with our residents, as you're aware, because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns, It's meant that we are not able to see each other as we used to in person before. That's the reason why we've had to move a lot of our resident engagement activities online. Last year, we were able to meet over 1,000 residents through these online meetings, engaging with more young people and residents who would not otherwise have been able to attend in person, either due to work commitments or travel. Another way in which we are engaging with residents is through regular feedback cycles. These have provided residents with a platform to constantly provide feedback to us via our website and the customer hub. All of this is in turn helping to improve our services, letting us know where we're not doing well. We also have involved residents for specific projects. For example, where a particular group of residents may be affected by a change on a development or an estate, and meetings have been held to be able to address these issues. But other residents have also been involved through focus groups, depending on the area that's being looked at, to kind of gauge what their feelings and their experiences are. Now that finally brings us to our strategic resident groups. As you can see, there's more than one way to get involved, but today we'll be talking about the opportunity and the benefits of volunteering through these strategic groups. All right, now, so we're going to play a short clip about the benefits on being on the group.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I live on the Bayside Estate. I've been there for over 20 years. I'm chair of the residents group, which is Strategy and Policy Group.
Hi, my name's James. I'm a Peabody resident in Hackney and I've lived there for about 11 years.
My name's Adam. I live in Leytonstone. I've been a Peabody resident for the past 25 years.
I saw the ad and I thought actually this is a chance that I've been looking for a while to get involved with how Peabody does things. I've had good and bad experiences with Peabody over the years, and I really believe in the concept of social housing and believe Peabody does really important work, and I wanted to help make things better.
I think it's one thing being a resident and perhaps having a problem, but being on a resident group means you can actually make a difference. You can help solve those problems for all residents, which can only be good.
I think it's important for everybody to get as involved as they can be with resident groups, because Peabody needs to hear the voices of the people who live in its homes. There's so much that we experience as residents that we wouldn't necessarily feed back to Peabody.
Going to the meetings and seeing the senior stakeholders there, whether they're service directors, managers of different departments, taking what you say seriously and then coming back after 3 months and giving you feedback on what they've done and how they're looking to implement your ideas. It gives me a lot of pride. It's important for us as residents to be able to have a channel where we can give our opinions, our voice, and be part of the process as such.
If you're nervous or unsure about getting involved, don't be. The only thing you need to be on a resident group is be a resident. Young people should definitely apply. It's a great experience. It would look great on a CV, and young people have got just as many valuable comments to make.
One of the things that's really positively surprised me about it is the amount of training that we get. So there's internal training from the resident involvement team, and they also pay for us to go on external courses.
There's nothing to be nervous about, just go for it. It's a very welcoming group. You come away feeling that you've actually contributed something towards your community. You've actually now become the voice, the channel for your community to be heard, and I think that's the biggest thing I can tell you in terms of reward that you get out of it.
Thank you. I hope this has given you a glimpse of what it's like to volunteer on the resident strategic groups. There's a much longer version of this, which will be able to circulate after the webinar. All right, now let's talk about the first of the two groups that we're going to talk about today, which is the Strategy and Policy Group. Now, there are currently 9 members. All are residents who volunteer to work on this group, ensuring that residents' voices are influencing policies and strategies. You can read some of their information on the website, which we shall be able also to link and send you information after the webinar. Now that you've looked at let's look at some of the service areas that the Strategy and Policy Group have influenced. Next slide. So that is where the information about the Strategy and Policy Group is. we will now look at some of the areas that they have influenced. With resident facing and resident impacting policies and strategies, the Strategy and Policy Group has been consulted throughout its life cycle, from the beginning to the end. They've been able to influence all stages from initial scoping to the final document approval. Because the group looks at varied topics, as you can see from the list, there's quite a lot to cover. Subgroups have been created, which is what we will look at next. As you can see, there are 5 subgroups within the Strategy and Policy Group, which are focused on specific areas of work. If there's any one particular area that you're interested in, please let us know in your application. We're currently looking for new members to join all of our subgroups. Now, let's have a look at the Scrutiny Panel and get to see what it is that they do. The second of the strategic groups is our Scrutiny Panel, which also currently has 9 members or residents who volunteer to work on this group. In September 2020, the panel presented its scrutiny report on the complaints handling process at Peabody to the Peabody board. Its recommendations were approved by senior management and the board, and the panel was applauded for its in-depth scrutiny and desire to improve the services residents receive. For this year, the panel is now reviewing Peabody service charges. So far, they have interviewed staff. They've carried out a large online survey of over 2,000 residents. They've held almost, I believe, 12 focus groups with residents, as well as held some telephone conversations with some members of the resident associations. You can also find more information about the panel on our website, including some of the previously completed scrutiny reports, but the link will also be sent to you as part of the pack that you will receive after this webinar. All right, now I think let's have a look at why it is important and what kind of benefits you will receive when you join these resident strategic groups. Okay. As you can see from the slide, there's 3 main different ways in which you can benefit from this opportunity. The first one is you'll have the opportunity to help shape Peabody's policies and strategies, which in turn is actually helping to improve the lives of over 155,000 residents that we have. You will also be in turn helping to improve a range of services, such as in-home repairs. Being involved will also provide you the opportunity to develop new transferable skills for other opportunities, either professionally or personally at home or with family or at work. It will build your confidence when speaking in public. You will also get to learn how to challenge and to influence others. You'll also be involved in lots of training and development opportunities, such as how to chair and organize meetings, how to effectively challenge, how to speak in public, how to be able to understand performance data and information. You'll also be able to learn, where necessary, how to write a report. And for those of you that require it, will be able to gain professional skills such as English language and computer skills. Being involved also provides you with an opportunity to expand your network. This is through meeting and working with other Peabody residents, as well as Peabody employees and employees of all levels. So you'll be able to meet frontline staff, you'll be able to meet middle management, senior management, and even at times, you'll be able to meet the executive team. Now, let's take some time to hear from our resident members who are with us now on the webinar. We shall start with Jeffrey, and then we shall hear from Lisa as well. Now, Jeffrey, could you please let us know why you joined and how you have positively influenced decision-making at Peabody, and what your favorite experience or possibly even experiences are of being on the scrutiny panel?
Of course. So I've always worked in a customer service role in my work life. And so in that way, I've always stood up for things that might not be right for the customer, and I've always endeavoured to sort of make sure that those things are done correctly, to make sure that the customer gets the best experience. So I've wanted to always give a voice to people who also might not be able to sort of share their opinions or views for various different reasons. It might be that their life is just too hectic to do so. It could be just other like issues they may face. So because I'm in a position where I can offer that time and effort, I kind of almost felt duty bound to sort of do more in the community that I was in. So I started doing scrutiny panel work in January 2020. That was with a different association before I moved to my current property. So just before the pandemic, of course, and during that time, from sort of January 2020 onwards, my health declined quite a bit. So moving on to actually becoming a Peabody resident, that was very recent. It was only in July of this year. I moved back to Essex to be closer to my family for support. So straight away, I actually joined Peabody Scrutiny Panel. Literally within, I think it was something like 7 days of moving into my property, I was on the scrutiny panel and asking to be a member. The process was quite quick, and we had some interviews. I know that Aisha, we had some. She was there as well. So Aisha was my first point of contact for the whole process. So that was quite easy. It was quite easy to contact Aisha. So far, I've learned some of the struggles that Peabody has via the scrutiny panel. We do meet quite regular, and we also bounce emails off each other. So I've seen some of the struggles that Peabody can have with its staff, its contractors, and as well, most importantly, its customers can see some of the issues that are there. And what that does is it encourages me to help investigate those issues and suggest ways to improve the ways of how Peabody can operate. In my opinion, so owning a home is more difficult in the current situation, in the current economy, and so a lot more people I think turn to social housing. That's why I think joining a place like Scrutiny Panel is really important, because it gives customers a way to sort of air problems and look at ways of how that can be improved. I think that is most of your question answered there, Aisha.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That's been summed up really well, your experience from before and kind of joining Peabody as well.
Yeah.
Can we now listen and hear from Lisa? Lisa is the chair of the Strategy and Policy Group. Lisa, same thing as well. Can you just let us know why you joined, how you have positively influenced decision making at Peabody, and what your favorite experience has been so far on being the Strategy and Policy Group? Thanks.
Okay. Right, well, why I joined, to be quite honest with you, my experiences with Peabody up until I joined, and actually even now, haven't necessarily been the best. And I wondered why. I couldn't quite understand why. I couldn't understand, the goings on, the background and everything like that. And then I received a letter in the post from Peabody about 8 or 9 years ago, perhaps, saying they were looking for residents to sit on the residents' council. So I applied, and Peabody haven't been able to get rid of me since. Basically, I've been involved in residents' groups ever since then. Also, as well, my work involves working with boards and with committees, rules, regulations, everything like that, and policies. So I was able to use my skills to benefit other people. There are still issues from when I first joined that haven't been resolved, but that's not the point of actually being on a resident panel. There are things that have been resolved for other residents and have benefited other residents. Also as well, I know in a way that being on a residence group is ideal for me, because I've been told at Peabody board level that I am very resident focused. So, which I took as incredibly good feedback. I don't know if they meant it as that, but I took it as good feedback. So, how I've positively influenced decision making at Peabody. I've been very fortunate actually at Peabody because of the level of contact that both the strategy and policy group and the scrutiny panel has with the executive directors. And as I say, I've been invited to attend board meetings and present reports as well. And before the social housing white paper and the tenant involvement empowerment standard, the board started listening to residents. They started valuing the opinion of residents, and in particular because we are involved in reviewing strategies and policies in what we had to say. And it came from the board down that they wanted to ensure that staff let us look at strategies and policies before the board did, which I thought was incredibly positive. Also as well, the strategy and policy group has been very influential, and we've established a governance framework, which means that all strategies and policies have to come to our group before going anywhere else, so they have the residents' voice. And one of the parts of the reports now, which I believe staff are asked, is, have you consulted with the strategy and policy group? Is the residents' voice there? So I feel that we've made enormous strides in that way. We're also part as well of the disposals decision-making process. So I feel that we are able to have some influence there. And we are taken seriously by a lot of the staff that come to our meetings. So as Jeffrey was saying, all the way down from executives, all the way down, we have them visiting and providing information and being involved in discussions at our meetings. And those are the subgroup meetings as well. Favorite experiences of being on SPG? Oh, there's so many. We've been going now for a couple of years. We've had 2 babies, not me personally, but there have been 2 baby forming members. I've made some fantastic friends of being on the group. And it's not just that, but it's actually seeing some of the members grow from when they first started, from not being quite sure of what to say in meetings, in that their confidence and their skills have grown so much that they're actually chairs of the subgroups now. So I think that has been absolutely fantastic. And one of them included, as well as Adam, who was on the video. So I think being able to be part of that has been amazing. And these are residents which I would never have met because we're from all across Peabody boroughs. You know, so east, west, north, south. I'm probably the furthest one south because the estate I'm in is based in Surrey. So same with Jeffrey being in Essex. You know, there are people on the scrutiny panel that he would never have met. I mean, I know he hasn't met them face to face yet, but you will do. And so yeah. So I think that's been the most amazing experience, apart from obviously being able to influence and make sure the residents' voice is heard.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. I do agree as well. The babies that have been born, it's been a wonderful addition to our strategy and policy group family, but also the impact and the development, personal development of all the members on the scrutiny panel, as well as the strategy and policy group, from when they joined at the beginning to how they are right now, much more confident in what they're doing. It's really good to be able to see that. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Lisa. I believe we've now reached the Q&A section. Let's see if we have any questions from our attendees.
I think there's been a couple.
Yeah, there's been a couple that have been in there. All right. So if Lisa, do you want to take the first one? or would you like me to take the first one?
No, I'm happy to actually do that. You may have to remind me, unfortunately, of our subgroup names. But yes,
Not to
basically-
worry. I can put it up on the screen because we do have it as a slide. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to explain a little bit more. I'll explain a little bit more about the reasoning behind it.
Yes.
Although we actually have the strategies, policies that come to us, what we actually noticed sometimes were themes that were running through these particular policies or issues that we felt needed to be addressed, and not just individually on different strategies and policies. For example, we had some fire safety letters come to the group at one point, and we realised that quite often, communications from Peabody can come across as very, very corporate when you're receiving a letter. They don't explain the reasoning why either. Sort of, for example, for fire safety, please make sure that there's nothing in the communal areas, without actually explaining it's for your own health and safety. So we decided to establish a resident communications subgroup, and all our subgroups will look at their specific areas before coming to the strategy and policy group for final recommendations. And so the resident communication groups liaises with communications team in Peabody to actually look at the different types of communications that go out. And that can also as well include the website, looking at how easily accessible it is, how useful it is, from the residents' perspective as well, because quite often it's not done deliberately, but staff are developing things from a business point of view. So if you're a resident, you're the one who's using it. So or receiving a letter. So that's why we have that subgroup. Community development subgroup. Now, community is really important to the SPG. And we've witnessed some fantastic and heard some fantastic stories of community spirit during the pandemic. And community development started before that with the Peabody Community Foundation, which had grants to local groups. And what we wanted to do was take forward the really good learning from the Peabody Community Foundation, from the communities themselves, and help with the local area plans so that communities stay and can grow where they are, so that Peabody realizes how important community is. It's not just a word, it's something that we all live. The customer experience transformation subgroup, with the merger of Family Mosaic and Peabody, obviously there were two different systems trying to be brought into one. And we were asked to be involved at an early stage in the development, in the trialing of the new processes that were being developed. So we decided to set up a customer experience transformation subgroup, bit of a mouthful, but it's about how the two organisations merged, and obviously going forward, the lessons learned will be taken into account if the merger with Catalyst goes ahead. So that it's a good experience from us. Now, to be honest with you, we do hate the word customer, but we understand that it's not just about residents, because Peabody does have some customers as well, because they provide care and support, for example, and those people are customers. So it's about those people who are not employed by Peabody. It's about their experience. It's about making things work for us, basically. The modern methods for home subgroup is looking at not just at development, not just at future development and fire safety and health and safety, but also as well about making homes fit for the future. It is about refurbishment of properties as well. And it's about doing it in a sensitive way and sensible way, so that you're not being disturbed if you're having to have things retrofitted in your home one year and then the following year you're going to have to be disturbed again. It's about looking forward, taking the best from what's available, listening to residents as well, and building homes that are fit for us, not just for Peabody. And that includes as well about building communities, as I say, and making sure they're fit for families or for single people, various different things like that. The stocks disposals group doesn't just look at the disposals. It looks at the rental policies. It looks at the overcrowding. It looks at undercrowding. It's about the actual use of the homes as well. So there's a variety of different things that fall into the stock disposal subgroup. and they've got a lot of work ahead of them as well, because even though Peabody has a lot of properties, there are issues with overcrowding, and we have made it obvious to Peabody, and we've been involved in the overcrowding policies as well, about how it's not just looking at the properties, but looking at the families, looking at their needs and what it is that they want and why they might want to stay in a particular area, and ensuring that properties are used as best as possible, and not just so that a family as it's growing might be moved from one property to another. From that, you may think the strategy and policy group doesn't actually have much to do, but it does. There's an awful lot of other things as well that we will still be looking at, and hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Lisa. If we go to the other one, there's a question about, has anyone ever been employed by Peabody having been in the group? Now, from all those that have been a part of the strategic groups, both the scrutiny panel and the strategy and policy group, no one has been employed by Peabody, but that doesn't mean that no one can't be employed. We have been able to provide references for some of the members who have left, either for a job or for a course that they're doing, or to join another residents association, or to engage in another local community activity. We've been able to provide a reference for that. But in terms of being able to work at Peabody, that opportunity hasn't yet come yet. Yeah. So another question here. Is there a time limit to how long you can be a resident on the resident panel, like with the board members? Yes, there is. There's a time limit of 3 years. However, that 3 years can also be extended to another 3 years. And every year, the terms of reference are reviewed by the group. So if there is a need to extend that even further, that will have to be agreed collectively by the group. So that possibility is there. Okay, so we've answered that one. And there is another one here. I find Peabody policy quite informative, but I don't see a lot of it being implemented and followed by Peabody's staff. How much oversight and monitoring reporting do resident groups and panels have in making sure policy is implemented by client-facing staff? Lisa, do you want to come in there before I come in, or?
Yes, thank you, Aisha. Yes, I completely agree with you. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily seem like it is. It is a slow process. It's not always as quick as we would like, because once we've fed into a policy, it will then go, for example, to senior leadership team, and then go to the board. And then obviously it then has to be implemented. But what we actually do is we do have a monitoring program. We have a huge forward plan, which Aisha looks after very well for us. And on that forward plan, we actually have updates on there from policies which we fed into. So when staff come back to us, we ask for reports on, for example, what has been implemented, what hasn't, and why hasn't it been implemented as well. Because that's the thing that we found with Peabody. Sometimes something doesn't happen, but you never know why. So that's what we actually say. It's not that we're going to, bite your head off if you haven't been able to do something, but just let us know why. Because sometimes there may be a really good reason, or sometimes there may be a reason which we can actually help solve as well. So it's really good if they can actually let us know why. And they have been really, really good with the "you said we did." They've taken that on board. Honestly, though, there are some teams who are slightly slower to do it within Peabody than others. But then I think that's the same across all organizations. So.
Yes, and just to add to what Lisa's saying in the perspective of the scrutiny panel, yes, there may to be a service area that they're reviewing, and part of the recommendations would be to actually review the policy itself and make sure that it's being implemented, because possibly from the findings, it's because the policy is not at all being implemented, or the impact of the policy counteracts what it is that the team want to achieve. So both groups, although will be looking at policies from different perspectives, they are able to engage in how these policies are reviewed for the future. Okay, there's one more question from Danny. I think, Jeffrey, you can answer this one. How have you made use of technology during pandemic?
I think the example is in how we're doing a webinar at the moment. So, yeah, there's obviously been a massive increase in use of places like Zoom, Teams, things like that. I mentioned earlier, we bounce across emails to each other all the time. There's ways, I think we also have a WhatsApp group with the Scrutiny Panel that we can talk to each other. So we are very much sort of in the using a lot of technology in the ways of communicating with each other. We use Google Drive as well to create documents and sort of tables and spreadsheets, and it's how we look at surveys and stuff like that as well. So the use of technology is a massive benefit as well to us, and that's how we've used it sort of across the pandemic.
Okay, Lisa, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, we had our away day. We like to actually have an away day every year where we look at strategies and decide what the priorities are, taking into account any that we've received from residents associations. Because obviously, to be the residents, truly be the residents' voice, we like to hear from residents associations and any other forums that that we can possibly contact as well. So yes, so we did actually have our away day. And normally, if we have an away day, we go to an external venue. You know, we all sit around. We have you turn up and you have a nice nibbles for breakfast, and have a nice lunch, and you usually roll out of the venue by the end of the day because we've eaten so much. So we had an away day, and we decided, because we all like food, so we decided that we still wanted to do something. So Aisha arranged for all of us to get a how to make your own pizza kit for lunch. So we all had lunch still. So everybody was sent this how to make your own pizza kit, with the idea being that we go away, make it, come back and eat it in front of each other. Some people were a little bit shy still, had the cameras off, but it was really good, and it was really good fun as well. So technology, has been good. I will admit, there's nothing like meeting face to face, because obviously you can have a bit of a banter and stuff as well. But technology hasn't stopped us. We've continued to meet from the start of the pandemic right the way through.
I agree. And even the training sessions that we've been able to have, both groups have been able to have training sessions where they're actually learning how to make things better and to improve, to equip them to improve the work that they're doing. They've been held online, and that's been possible with technology. All right, so one that I think I will respond to: how many people do you usually get applying for each post? Is there a limited number for each group? So obviously the fact that we're doing this means that not many residents have been coming up or showing that they're interested. And we were worried, thinking not everyone actually understands what it is all about volunteering, what this opportunity is, and how important it is to make sure that you get your residents' voice heard. Hence why we're doing this. So in terms of uptake, we haven't been getting many people apart from those that are currently on the group. And as well, some people that have applied, they've joined, but then due to personal circumstances, haven't been able to maintain it, which is all fine and good, because all we need is just your residence experience. But we thought this is the best way for us to let you know and tell you about what the residents are doing, and what a wonderful opportunity this is for you as an individual resident to help shape how Peabody improves its services. That's what we'll be doing now. On the groups right now, there are 9 members each, as I previously told you. The current terms of reference for each of those groups say it can be able to increase up to, I believe, 16 or 17. But then the terms of reference are reviewed on an annual basis. So that number can increase or it can decrease depending on the members who are on the groups. Yes. And do we have to attend meetings? If so, how many? Jeffrey, how many meetings do we attend for the policy?
So a scrutiny panel. For scrutiny panel, it's mandatory. It's like a one meeting per month of 2 hours. We do have sometimes meetings in between that, but you'd always be informed of those with like sort of prior notice. So you've always got some time to let us know if you can or can't attend. But yeah, no, there's always one meeting per month for 2 hours.
Yeah. Lisa?
Yeah, with the this is partly as well about the membership levels and the numbers of people. The strategy and policy group, we meet every second Monday of the month, so we have a monthly meeting as well. And the reason as well is with our membership, the meetings aren't mandatory, because I completely understand when you're working on a particular scrutiny, you need consistency, you know, to be able to understand and have the context. With the strategy and policy group, we are aware, as the scrutiny panel is, that you have other commitments as well, and sometimes you're not available for that particular meeting. So it's not mandatory to attend every meeting, because say we understand. Obviously, it would be fantastic if you can, but if you can't, then we completely understand. Which is why we like to actually have more members than the current 9 that we've got. Purely because then that way, if we're the residents' voice, I would be a little bit disappointed, for example, if I heard that the strategy and policy group had looked at a policy and reviewed it and made recommendations on it, and there were 3 people that turned up for the meeting. So it's a case of, if we've got, say, 16 people, we normally would have at least 10 to 12 people turn up. And also, say, with the subgroups, those are different members. Apart from the people that chair them, who are members of the main group, they're made up of different residents. And we're looking for a smaller number than 16 for each group. But to be honest with you, if we've got a lot of interest in the group, then we're not going to turn people down, because that's obviously something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So those meetings as well for the subgroups, those are different frequencies, and those are down to the chair. We don't expect them to meet monthly. We would probably imagine they meet every, say, 6 weeks, with in between time with contact. There is work that is done in between meetings as well with us. So if, for example, if for whatever reason we unfortunately do have a low attendance at a strategy and policy group meeting, then anything that staff want comments on is sent around in the meeting, in between the meetings. The members can reply by email, and then if needed, we call a meeting with that particular member of staff or that particular team, so that they can answer our questions. So we don't just kind of rubber stamp stuff. We do take things very seriously, but obviously we want to have as many residents involved as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can just add to that. I think using the word mandatory was probably the wrong word. What I probably meant was mandatory as in the meeting. There is always one meeting a month on the Monday. So like, if people can't make it, people can't make it. Of course, they've got lives outside of that. But likewise, we always get a pack prior to the Monday meeting. We'll get a pack with the previous minutes, what was discussed at the last meeting, and then what we're planning to discuss on the next meeting. So yeah, it's yeah, I guess using the word mandatory is not the quite right the right word, but yeah, yeah, it's well prepared.
While we're still on that, if we can answer one of the questions, we've answered the question partly where they're asking about what the 2 teams do and what they are. But Jeffrey and Lisa, would you consider applying to be on the other panel?
Yes, I would say yes. Very much so in the I can't remember, it was the first one, customer.
Is it the communications subgroup?
That's it. Yeah, the communication subgroup. That would be very much an interest of mine, because I'm very good with sort of wording things. So I think that's probably kind of an area of mine. I've always been very customer service related, so that would be an area of interest of mine. And if I was to apply, that would be the subgroup I'd go for.
And Lisa, would you switch
Oh,
over to the
Oh
script?
no, this is terrible. This is going to sound awful. No, I wouldn't. Partly because I've been on the Peabody Scrutiny Panel before it merged with Family Mosaic. I was on the Peabody Scrutiny Panel then. But also as well, I like the fact that we see so many different things. Whereas the scrutiny, which the scrutinies are amazing, but because of the focus is quite intense on a particular area for a while, I do enough of that during my day job. So I like the variety. I like the fact that we can be involved in something, and then you can watch it grow when you get the feedback and the follow-up. But I like the variety, the fact that it is different things across all of Peabody. So sorry.
On this occasion. If I would like to just recap for Nicole, because we did talk about this, about the commitment levels or in terms of time needed for these roles. For both of the groups, so the strategy and policy group and the scrutiny panel, you've got a monthly meeting of 2 hours, but you need to include in and factor in at least another 2 hours of possibly reading the material before and making sure you're prepared for the meeting. And depending on what other activities are involved, so for example, with the scrutiny panel, if you've got to hold focus groups or interviews or do some benchmarking, you may find that within the course of a month, you're having to spend a little bit more than that. So you're looking at probably 6 to 8 hours max in a month in terms of the scrutiny panel. Similarly, even with the strategy and policy group, where you've got to have several policies to read through, is quite a lot of documents to read. You've got to spend quite a lot of time reviewing them and feeding back on them. And that could also take up quite a lot of time. On the upside, with the subgroups of the strategy and policy group, the commitment may not be as much as with those members who join the strategy and policy group, as they will not be meeting as frequently. As Lisa has said, their meeting arrangements will be determined by the group. We're suggesting probably 6 to 8 weeks, but that will be determined then by the group. I hope that answers that.
Sorry, can I just add, actually?
Yes.
Sorry, just quickly to answer Nick's question. They are in the evenings, all the
Yes.
meetings, but also as well with the time commitment. As both Jeffrey and I have said, we understand that this is people's time. I mean, it's our time as well that we give. So it is a case of, with the meetings, if you're attending the meetings, if you can have read the papers, maybe had time to prepare questions, we don't expect you to be experts on things. There is training available. Sometimes it may be that you don't have any questions on a particular topic, or if there's a strategy or policy that's being reviewed, you're not quite sure what it is. And sometimes it's actually during the meeting, during the discussion, that things come to light. So we don't expect you to be experts. Reading, we know that some people will read and reread and reread things. So it's just, it's a ballpark figure, really. I mean, the meetings say tend to be 2 hours for both groups. And the reading time, so some people, as they like to read and reread and maybe even do research on them. It all depends. If there's something in particular as well, if there's a particular policy that you're passionate about, a particular area, then yes, it may be that you will do research on it, your own research. You will perhaps want to find out a little bit more about it. So it's entirely up to you. But say for the strategy and policy group, I would say it's a minimum of attending the meeting and reading those meeting papers. Yeah. So around about 4 hours. Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Just to add one more little thing to Nick's questions. Yes, the meetings are in the evening, as Lisa said. However, when we do have training where it requires possibly half a day or 3/4 of a day, what will usually happen is there'll be plenty of notice given. I mean, the training sessions we've been holding have been held on a Saturday between 10 and 3. And we've made sure that members have enough time, and we've picked on a date that most members are available to attend. So at least that is something that can be kept in hand. If I take the next one, what is the gender split in the groups? I think it's fairly even.
Yeah.
I think it's fairly even. I mean, there's no way in which we're going to say we can't have you because you're a man and we have one more male than the females, or we're only taking you because you're a female or anything like that. But what we want is to just give residents as much the opportunity to have their voices heard, especially the young ones. Please don't be put off by the amount of work or this or the other. Anytime that you do spend trying to give your voice and your opinion is highly appreciated.
Yeah, I think
All right,
diversity is very much
yes, yes,
yeah, it's very
very
diverse, really diverse.
yes.
I mean, I don't know if I'm considered a young one. I'm only 27, so I don't know.
We need more of you, Jeffrey. We need more of you. All right. How welcoming and friendly are the strategic groups to new members? I think, Jeffrey, this is one for you as the newest member to have joined.
Yeah, I'm still very much in my infancy, aren't I? So, yeah, I've had sort of nothing but a good experience. I've not had sort of any untowards things being said or done. So I've not had anything to note that's bad. We've all got on very well. I have emails backwards and forwards with a few of the members and Aisha as well, and we all get on very well. I'd say very welcoming, and yeah, I couldn't say a bad word really.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Yeah. Thank you. And Lisa, I think you can take this last question, or second last question.
I was just about to say, though, for the SPG, if you join us, the interrogation to get past is terrible.
No, Lisa, it will not get that bad. Do these groups have any interaction with other resident groups that were mentioned earlier? So we talked about residents associations, we talked about online groups and meetings, we talked about the resident board members and the committee members. So
yeah, we do actually. So when we're actually looking at the priorities for the strategy and policy group, because we cover all of the areas across Peabody, because it's the resident, not just the resident facing strategies and policies, but we insisted it was also those that impact on residents, because some of them aren't necessarily resident facing, but they still have an impact on residents. So what we wanted to do as well was make sure that we were really looking at the priorities that residents were interested in, because we don't just rely on when something's due to be reviewed by Peabody. If it's important to residents, then we ask to see them sooner. So annually, at least annually, Aisha contacts the residents associations for us, and we get their top priorities, and we take those into account when we have our away day. We're also, as well, we were, before the pandemic set in, we were actually looking to hold little sessions at the forums and groups of residents associations where we could tell them about the strategy and policy group. We do have links to the online groups as well that exist, the focus groups, because also we establish focus groups, or we can do as and when we want to hear from residents. We also sit in on the customer services committee. We've been invited to sit in on there, which is the Peabody group, which is it's one of their committees. And also we get invited to the Peabody board and to write a report as well. So we get invited to the Peabody board a couple of times a year. I also used to have breakfasts with, not literally breakfast, but it was a breakfast meeting with Brendan Sarsfield, the outgoing chief executive. Yeah, so we have a lot of interaction both internally with Peabody and externally. Obviously, you can never have too much with other residents. And as there are more and more, as Peabody becomes larger and larger, obviously that's going to become more difficult, which is why the subgroups as well, them taking on the work, they will also be in contact with the residents. And so because, you know, you can never have too many residents that you're in contact with. So yes, we do have a lot of contact with other residents.
Yeah, I was going to add just one little bit was one of the ways that we also engage with other residents is TPAS. So that is an external forum, really, isn't it? It's that holds online webinars, training, just different conferences and stuff, and that is also a way to engage with other residents that are external from Peabody.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jeffrey. Is there one more question that I've just seen pop up? Why has Brendan decided to leave Peabody? A bit strange. Well, I think that's a question that we have to pass on to Brendan.
I thought he was retiring, actually.
He's retired. Yes, he's retired from being the head, being with us for 4 years and 16 years with Family Mosaic. So 20 years as a CEO for quite a while, and I think he's going on to do bigger and better things. Definitely. Thank you very much, Danny, for the information. Thank you. And Nicole, perfect. We'll be able to send you some more information on there. I just noticed that there were a few questions that came in. Oh yeah, just one final poll just before we close. One final poll after everything that you've heard, everything that I've told you about Jeffrey and Lisa. Are you still interested in joining a Peabody Strategic Resident Group? Final poll, please. Yes, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So just to let you know, the application form can be found online. It's on www.peabody.org.uk. There is the link to be able to join, to apply to join any of the groups. Just let us know what it is that you would like, and then we'll be able to do that. Remember, all that is required is your experience as a resident. That is it. As long as you're a Peabody resident who wants to volunteer to help improve our services, we would love to hear from you. Yes, I would like to thank all the residents that have attended this. I think we've had 19 residents attend. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeffrey and Lisa. And thank you to the behind the scenes Peabody staff members who are helping to make sure this thing all goes well. And with the last minute, any final words, Lisa and Jeffrey?
I'd just like to say thank you very much for your interest. Hopefully, I haven't put you off. I'm sure Jeffrey has been much more welcoming than I have. But thank you. And hopefully we will see you at some point on one of the groups.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, very likewise here as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We hope to see, I guess, some of you soon on some of our groups.
Thank you very much.